It's showtime. So there you go, we're live, and we were just waiting for the audience to build up, Ben. So where are you today?
I'm in Alveston in Derby, Stephen.
Okay, and what are you doing there? So it's one of your 7 branches.
Yeah, so we've got 7 residential sales branches. We have a lettings branch and a student lettings branch as well. So today it's a mix of everything. We're just so busy at the minute. I'm getting stuck in there with the valuations, the take-ons, the viewings, the ordering of the PPE equipment, the marketing. So today is it's a day where a lot of things need to get done. So a productive day, hopefully.
Good. And do you travel to all the offices?
Yeah, so we're quite unique in Derby in the fact that we've got 7 sales branches, as I just talked about, and they're all really within a 10 or 15-minute drive of each other, which has always been one of our unique selling points. You know, rather than a single city centre office, we've got this network of branches, which means we've usually got the market share in each suburb. But that makes it really easy just to keep in touch with everybody, to get out to the branches, although it has been difficult of late with regards to everything that's going on and just how busy it is. But yeah, it's definitely a big part of what I do is speaking to the team, especially with our management team, and making sure everybody's got what they need.
Okay, so brilliant. So we've got a few people joining us now. So Ben, thank you for being a guest. Normally it's the other way around. You've got guests yourself, haven't you? So you've got a great podcast called The Truth About Business Podcast. So for people that are watching this now or on review, definitely go to iTunes. Definitely download it, and then definitely give Ben some 5 stars and rate and review it, because it's exceptional. So tell me to start off with, hi Sam. So we've got Sam from Agents Together, so we will talk about Agents Together in a bit. Andy Overman joining us from his holiday in Hull. Thanks very much for joining this. So Sam, Andy, please, if you'd be kind enough to tag some people in that you think will benefit from Ben and everything he's going to say, that'd be fantastic. And I promise you, he's got loads of fantastic things to say. And just to line you up a bit, I know we were talking about Ben having 7 branches. Last month, Hannells took on 190 properties, and they agreed 188 sales in July, which is phenomenal. And you're on track to smash that. So there's going to be loads of gold in this. And brilliant. Russell Humphrey, so thanks very much for joining. So another mentor from Agents Together. Thank you. I just really want to say, Ben, Russell, Sam, you are doing a phenomenal job. So grateful that you've got involved in mentoring. And in fact, let's start there. And Russell, you know, if you've got anybody, please tag them, like it, share it, give yourself loads of likes. So we come back to the truth about business. Let's talk about Agents Together.
Okay.
So thank you, one, for appearing as a guest today. Secondly, thank you for being a mentor. One of the people, your mentee, came onto YouTube and did the most incredible video singing your praises. So well done. Thank you. Why did you get involved with Agents Together in the first place, and why do you think it's important to have a mentor, please?
Well, first of all, Stephen, thank you for the invite. You know, I'm really honoured to be a part of the show. You've had some great guests, and you've just been talking about the guests that are coming up over the next few weeks. So humbled to be a part of it. Same with Agents Together, really. I think when I first saw that and was getting an idea of what it was about, it didn't really register with me. But then when I started to see some of the feedback that you guys were getting on LinkedIn and who was involved with it and what the genuine intention behind it was just a no-brainer for me. And since then, it's been an opportunity for me to be able to not just share my experiences with other, you know, ambitious and driven entrepreneurs, but to make some really good connections in the industry with people who inspire me, people who motivate me. You know, the 2 guys that I've been speaking to, Simon Taylor and Jonathan Morgan, each within their own rights are more than qualified to be a mentor. And part of my journey, which I'm sure we'll talk about on the interview, I've always very much, up until recently, sort of kept myself to myself and the family business in Derby. So when you talk about having a network of people who inspire you and challenge you and push you to stay motivated and go on to bigger and better things, I get just as much out of being a part of this Agents Together initiative as hopefully the mentees and the people that I work with get out as well. So for me, it's a relationship that works both ways. And then there's no better feeling, and this is genuine as well, and I can feel it when I'm talking about it. When you see one of the videos from the people that you've been talking about on LinkedIn singing your praises and saying that you've actually made a positive difference to their own journey, there's no better feeling than that. You know, it's such a fulfilling role and such a great thing to be a part of. So, and that's why I've been a part of it, and it's definitely lived up to expectations. All the people working behind the scenes, Sarah, Sam, they are all just genuinely wanting to do as much as they can to help people and to support people and to help people become the best versions of themselves. So I'm proud to be a part of it.
Brilliant, thank you. And Sam, I know you're watching. You're doing a fantastic job. Sarah, you're doing an amazing job as well. Chris Watkin, you're doing an amazing job videoing all these people. Mike Day, I better mention you just because you're a Watford supporter, and I'll get into trouble for not mentioning you. And even Kenny and Mike, they're doing an amazing job as well. But you know, as you rightly point out, there was a lovely video that was done actually last night. I think Anthony talked about, you know, what he's got from Kenny Bruce, which is fantastic. So thank you. I'm really, really grateful. Hi, Abigail. Thanks very much for joining us from Wembley. Sun's starting to shine near me, so hopefully it's shining near you as well. So let's come back and let's talk about your story. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you started and when you left school or uni and how you got into agency, please, Ben.
Okay, so when I was younger, sort of 16 in my teens, I was at sixth form. I had no real idea of what I wanted to do. I was working part-time at Halfords at the time. I'm really enjoying it there. And I came to the end of college. I knew I didn't want to go to university because if I was going to study anything, it would have been history. And I knew that really I wasn't going to be an author of history books. So I thought that's going to be a waste of time, really. So my Hannells was actually started by my dad and it's a bit of a funny phrase, ex-stepmom, who still are the owners of the business today. They're now separated. And so that was started in October of 2003. And when I was about to leave college, they'd been going for about a year. They'd set up one branch in Hilton. It was a case of right place, right time with some great work ethics and something that was a little bit different, and it really taken off. And at the time, I actually had no intention of ever working for the family business because of all the reasons that you think people don't want to work within the family businesses. So I had two choices. It was either go full-time at Halfords and be a deputy manager, or it was to come into the family business. And I thought that would give me a bit of time to try and work out in which direction I wanted to take my life. And then 15 years later, I'm still here. So I started without a computer. All I was given was a desk, a pen, and the matches. So when a house comes on the market, we print off everybody that's registered on the mailing list. And my job every day was just to ring everybody on that list and tell them about the new houses that were coming on the market. I then progressed on to accompanied viewer. So showing people around the houses. Obviously, I still remember my first viewing now that somebody took me out on. I did that for about 3 years. I then progressed to doing the listings, so going out and taking the photos, getting the agreement authorized, doing the measurements, etc. And Hannells itself at the time was really booming up until about 2007. We got up to about 18 branches. Some of them were franchises, but the majority of them were owned by in the family. So my mum and my ex-stepmom. Then 2007 came, and that took a massive hit on us, as I'm sure it did anybody that can remember being an estate agency back then. So our bottom line, the pipeline, it literally reduced by about 60% overnight. So as a result of that, hibernated a load of offices, and coming out of that, initial 18 months of the recession, we were down to 2 branches that were owned by Ali and Michael, my dad and stepmom, and 2 that were owned by franchises. And since then, we've been on a journey of building that back up, taking the lessons that we've learned from pre-lockdown, pre-recession, and trying to make sure that if that were to happen again, the foundations that we've built the business on are much more solid and can withstand, an event of the same drop in activity. So along the way, there's been various, ventures and new companies started, and I'm just thinking of some of them now. So I've always been part of this family business. I suppose you would say property was never really a passion of mine. I was never passionate about getting into a estate agency. But when I was in it, I was always passionate about being the best at what I do. And as that grew and I took on more of a senior role, I'm a director here now, it was more about passionate building a great business that has a great team and delivers a great customer service and is well known for what it does. And eventually that resulted in us last year being awarded as the residential estate agent of the year at Peter Knight's EA Masters Awards. So that was the sort of culmination of the last 15 years. But there's been lots of failures over the years. You know, we've launched, or me and my dad, or me and my own, have gone out and tried ventures and it's not worked. There's been far more failures than there have been successes. But what's been important from that is that we've taken lessons and we've taken the things that worked, got rid of the things that don't work, and tried to implement them into what we do here at Hannell. So there was I Spy My Home, which was our own version of an online estate agency, which we gave a good go at, but we just realised that, you know, stick to what we know. We've been very good at this local agency in the local suburbs, delivering a great service. You know, why take away from that? But like I said, it was a learning experience. There was Part X My Home, which was a portal that tried to match buyers up with sellers to reduce the chain process. There's been, you know, on my side of things, there's been direct mail companies, there's been social media businesses, there's been all sorts of things. But I've just always been passionate about business, entrepreneurship, sales and marketing, and just developing myself. So that is the journey, as short as I can make it without boring your readers or listeners or watchers.
Okay, cool. There's loads to unpack there, blimey. So let's start, because I know we've got somebody here who's in a family business or running a family business now. What's it like working with your family? How have you found that?
It's a good question, and it's a difficult question for me to ask, because the majority of my career, probably apart from 2 years over that last 15 years, has been working with family business. So I don't really have anything to compare it to other than when I was at Halfords way back in the day. But it has its pros and cons, and there has definitely been times that we've fallen out and taken different perspectives, as happens in any business. And I've left the business, and we didn't particularly leave on good terms, but obviously that was back in the past, and we're all past that now. And actually, Michael, who was one of the founders with my ex-stepmom, he's now taken a step back from the business, and at the top of the business is me and Alison, and we get on, really well. We know each other's strengths and weaknesses. We work together really well, and our relationship now is brilliant. Ali's good at what I'm not very good at, and I'm good at what Ali's not very good at, and we just make a great combination that I hope the rest of the business sees as well. But yeah, you have falling outs, you have different points of views. I think for a father who brings his son into the business, who may be looking to maybe slow down a bit, has experienced the highs and lows of entrepreneurship, and you've got this little puppy dog yapping at him saying, we should do this, we should do that, let's not do this, let's not do that. It could probably have been a bit testing for him. But equally, you've got me who wants to drive the business and come out of this recession, especially that we had back in 2007, and try new things. And I think within any business, it's just about communication, and the more open and honest you are with each other, and the more you have those uncomfortable conversations, the easier things happen. But it's just having the courage to have those. And if you do fall out, all families do fall out, but it's just about making sure that you communicate and talk to each other, and don't regret things going to the extreme just because certain conversations haven't been had. But for me now, working in the family business, in the role that I'm in, my brother's in the business as well. He's doing a great job valuing for one of our branches, and it's really helped to turn around the branch there in a very competitive area. I love it. So I couldn't see myself doing, if I was going to go into another business, I would very much struggle to see myself working in an environment that's not like this. And hopefully that sort of culture, and that, it sounds a bit cheesy, but that family ethos is something that sort of cascades through the rest of the business as well. And I certainly think it does.
Well, I love this comment from Abigail. I was able to work with my dad, but I don't think I will be able to work with my daughter. Mind you, she's only 4 at the moment. Okay, you never know, Abigail. And there you go, Shell. Thanks for joining us. So, a couple of comments. We do all learn from past. Excellent point. Me too. Mine's 19 months, but far too much like me. So again, brilliant. Thank you. What was interesting is I know you run a brilliant podcast, and we're going to go into more detail about that, called The Truth About Business Podcast, and you actually interviewed your dad It's not one I've listened to. How was that?
Okay. It was interesting, and it really highlighted to me that my dad left my family home when I was 4, so I've never lived with him. So when I'm at work, that's the most I've seen of him, even though he's taken a step back now. But it really was interesting to find out about my own dad's history, because I think you spend so much time with your family, but you only know from about when you were born moving forward. So to hear some of his stories about, how he developed and the businesses that he'd been through. And there was also a little bit of an emotional bit in there talking about, when we were younger and, would he have done things differently with regards to, he was so driven and ambitious and entrepreneurial, and his partner, my mum at the time, was perhaps not that way inclined, and that's what I think drove the wedge between them in the end. But to be able to see it from his side of things, which I've never really talked about, because it's just one of those areas that is an awkward thing to talk about with your family. But yeah, it was really enlightening, and some of the feedback that I got, I think I got up to about 45 episodes, because I've had to put a pause on it now because I've got other projects that I'm working on. I've got a 12-week-old baby, which takes up a lot of time, as well as
Congratulations.
2 dogs. Thank you. But yeah, the comments were, it was really good, and it was the first time he'd done something like that, and I didn't quite know how it was going to go, because you have a perception of how an interview with your dad is going to go, and he's the sort of dad that will make the most random comments on your Facebook page, and you just think, do you realize that other people can see this? So it could have either been a car crash or it could have been something really good, and it actually turned out to be really good. He surprised me, so it was a good experience for both sides.
And actually, what's really interesting, because I found that because my mum was in hospital for 3 months at the start of the year, and I was going to a hospital every day, and you sit and you talk to your parents and you find out what happened in the past, and you think, God, you know what? I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I would say to anybody who's watching this or listening to it is, speak to your family, speak to your parents, find out what happened in your history, because it is so, I found it fascinating and interesting, and it's great. So, fantastic.
I think, Stephen,
Abigail,
also with that, particularly if you are working in a family business, when you understand some of their own past, it helps you to understand how they are now as well. So it's definitely well worth having that conversation. If, like you've said, there's people thinking of bringing on board their sons, or people that are thinking of going to work with their mums, just have a talk about their own journey, because then when you are talking about certain decisions, or you're getting frustrated with how they're approaching something, all of a sudden certain things start to make a lot more sense than they used to.
Okay, so you've got another fan on the podcast, Abigail. Loves the podcast.
Thank you, Abigail.
You're welcome. I'll take the check later for introducing her. I shared something which we're going through at the moment, which was exceptional. So the content that you did. So just out of interest, why did you decide to do a podcast?
So I have a gift and a curse, which is when I finish work and I get home, I can't just sit down and watch telly, which my partner, who I've got 3 kids with now and 2 dogs, and I've lived with for many years, we've been together since I was 19, 20, will probably say is more of a curse than a gift. But I just cannot sit down and watch telly. I have to be doing something. So one day I might regret that and burn out and end up, wishing that I hadn't spent so much time doing stuff and just relaxed and chilled out. But for me, I enjoy it, and I've always had a passion for, speaking to people who inspire me, who motivate me, who I can learn something from. And that was a point where I realized, I mentioned earlier that I've always very much kept myself to myself in this Derby family-run business. I've been a part of Peter Knight's Property Academy, where I met some great people there, but for some reason that fizzled out, usually down to time commitments. We've been on Sally Lawson's courses and things like that, but typically I've kept myself to myself. So I started to do something about that a couple of years ago. So I created a mastermind of similar local business owners who are in all different types of industries, and we meet once a month and share problems and talk about solutions and share ideas about what's working in one industry and how that might cross over into another industry. So that was the start of me sort of expanding my network and learning from other people, and helping me to level myself up by, communicating on a regular with people who are more into the careers than I am. And then that podcast was just the sort of the next step, really. It was an opportunity for me to put something out in the world that I can put my stamp on, because I think that's always been at the back of my head, is I'm part of this family business, but I'm conscious of later on in life, particularly for my own children, do I want to be seen as somebody who's sort of piggybacked onto the success of my dad and my stepmom, or do I want to, blaze my own journey and have something out there that I can say was mine, that I created? And the podcast was really the first full-blown attempt at that. So the reason behind that was just to, again, just learn from people who are more successful, see what I can pull from them and implicate in my own life, whether it be personal or professional, and put something out there that people associate with Ben Brain. So my name is being enhanced with regards to this sort of self-development world, but also hopefully I'm putting something out there of value. And you had some great words to say about it earlier on. Thank you very much for that, and the shout out is much appreciated. And it was amazing. I got to have conversations with people around the world that I would never have before even dreamed about approaching. But with each step, I'd never done any sort of recording before or podcasting, and each step just pushed me outside my comfort zone a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more, until I was having conversations with CEOs of $150 million companies over in the USA. So it was an amazing experience. The people I've met as a result and have continued to be a part of my network since then, and I regularly go to ask them questions and ask for help and ask for the feedback. It will be an instrumental part of my life, whether it was the podcast itself or whatever I go on to next.
So you've had 45 podcasts. What have you learnt? What three things have you learnt from your guests then? We'll keep it short, because I'm sure there's going to be loads and loads.
Okay, great question. So if I had to think of three, for me, from a typical person's viewpoint of what makes somebody successful, there were some real consistent themes. The first one was in terms of mindset. So what I found was that the people who had these global brands and $150 million turnover businesses, they just think bigger than everybody else. So rather than being the local dominating agent, or the regional dominating agent, or even the country's dominating agent, they think about, how can I be the best agent in the entire world? And asking that question just brings up all different types of answers and research and things to look into. But you definitely see, as you sort of progress through the levels of success of business owner, there is just a gradual step up in how big they think and what they see as possible. So that was something that, looking back, that was really clear for me. The next one, what was the last lesson? Just how nice they all are. Whether it was, like I say, the CEO of this $150 million company in America called Service Express that has 400 people, or whether it was, Yvonne Gorman, who is a well-known figure in the business community here in Derby. They are just nice people who want to see other people do well. And on that point, I won't use that as a third point, but what I have learned is, if you do want to, excel in life in any arena, whether it's a state agency or whether it's business, find people who are more successful than you and just ask them, because they are more than happy most of the time to share their experiences and their advice. And whether I had a podcast or not, I've got no doubt that these people that I spoke to would have gladly put aside, even if it was 10 or 15 minutes, just to give me a couple of insights. And, I've had meetings with people because it's given me the confidence to go out and ask people who weren't on the podcast, but I've sat down and had lunch with, had coffees with, and that has just, enriched my whole experience and, widened my own perspectives. So that would be the second thing, is just don't be afraid to ask for help, because the people that are more successful than you, not only is it a big hit to their ego, which everybody likes, sometimes people don't ask them because they're too afraid to. So when you actually approach people and say, how did you do this? Or would you be free for a coffee? Okay, you might not get somebody, next week every time, but I'd say, 9 times out of 10, somebody's going to come back to you with something useful. And what would be the third thing that I learned? I might have to default to that as the third thing. The third thing.
It's all right. I've written down three things anyway.
I've got one. Can I share one more with you then?
Of course you can.
It was just mindset, and that is definitely what I found separates, again, from the lower tiers of business to the most successful tiers of business, is how they view the world, how they viewed disasters, and things that would have put people off and made them never approach business or entrepreneurship again. These people have the mindset to keep going and actually look for the positives in each situation and just be unstoppable. Once you've got your vision, once you know where you want to go, just stop at nothing to get there.
Brilliant. Well, look, I think there's a few things. Let me just say hello to Kathy, who's watching, Sarah, who's joined us. So thanks very much for Sarah for joining us. You missed us singing your praises. You want us to sing your praises again? Quick, you have to sing Sarah Edmondson's praises again. One more time. Ben.
Oh, sorry. Say that again, Stephen. You cut out then.
Okay, Sarah Edmondson's joined us. So welcome, Sarah. And we've got to sing her praises again about Agents Together.
Yeah, absolutely. Sarah and the team there are doing an amazing job. Really, really proud to be a part of it. It's an exciting and very enjoyable part of my life at the moment. So again, for anybody else that's thinking about joining on the mentor side or the mentee side, go for it because you won't regret it. And their intentions are 100% genuine. They're just out there trying to help as many people as possible.
Okay, and I'm going to share all the news with everybody. We had a meeting last night and we've now got over 100 mentees that are being helped. So well done, Sam. Well done, Sarah. So that's enough of them at the moment. Let's come back to what you said. And what's really interesting is for me when I go in and I do some consultation with people is actually getting people to think big, So, I won't mention any names, but I'm doing with a couple of agencies at the moment, 5-year plans. And looking at these 5-year plans, it was right. We want to get X amount of rental properties or sales properties. And I said, well, hold on a second. Is that big enough? And again, so that's one thing that for me is maybe a mindset
I have a question
thing.
for you on that, Stephen.
Yeah.
Do you think, from your experience, that think big mentality is something that people are born with and they've either got it or they don't have it? Or do you think that it can be nurtured and as they experience more of what comes from thinking big, they expand their own thinking? What's your thoughts on that?
I think it will happen, but you've got to think that way. You've got to think, again, I was listening to a podcast today with Jim Quick, and he was interviewing Quick Brain, and he was interviewing somebody, and they were talking about, you think you can do 20 press ups or push ups, or actually do 100, and then when you get to 100, and then I'm sure you've come across David Goggins,
yes.
The Navy SEAL, which is exceptional, and you see the amount of what these push ups, press ups that he did, in 24 hours. And again, they both talk about actually there's 40% more that you can actually give when you think that you've reached your limit. There's another 40%. And they both push themselves to get there. So, your final point about mindset, a lot of it is about mindset. A lot of it is about belief. I think we're both very similar in that we both continuously use every day as a learning day. And we're both trying to feed our mind and memory and, to get to, or to be, I think what you said, to be better versions of ourselves. But it doesn't happen overnight. You've got to put in the hard yard and the hard work. And it may be great that you and I are listening to the podcast, but it's actually, what do people do to actually implement it? Implementation for me is massive. Because it's great, I can listen to, I walk every day, I do 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 steps every day, but I'm feeding my mind. And then it's right, what can I utilize and implement that's going to make a difference? And I think the best people out there are the ones that take action and they implement it. They've got a strong mindset. They understand that they are going to be, life is a roller coaster. You are going to have some ups. You are going to have some downs. I like the way you said it a lot earlier. You've had loads of failures and you've called them lessons and discoveries, which is what life is all about. It's about learning from them and making sure that you get better and you improve. And then the final point is, if you don't ask, you don't get.
Yeah.
So I, asked you to come on, which is fantastic. you know, I've had other people. I've had, you know, I don't know if you read. Well, I know you came onto my course on prospecting, and you know, I talk about the best prospecting book I've ever read is Fanatical Prospecting by a guy called Jeb Blunt, who wrote it, and he's in America. Well, Jeb's been kind enough to be a guest on whether it's the Estate Agents podcast or whether it's on here as well 3 times, you know. And what was really interesting with him, I had 9 attempts at trying to get him on, and I read every single thing he said in his book, and I thought, you know what, you're not going to get off easy. Okay, I am going to get you on, and I'm going to have a conversation with you. And managed to get him on. And I said to him, can I ask the reason why you're on here? So he said, or in fact, I've been asked the question, how did you manage to get Jeb on here? So I said, Jeb, you know, why are you on my podcast? So he said, well, very simply, you asked.
Yeah.
And that's it. And I think people, you'll be surprised. You know, if you don't ask, you're definitely not going to get. If you do ask, what's the worst they're going to say? And as you said, you know, I've got another very exciting guest going to come on in a couple of weeks from another podcast, and he interviews top sportsmen, top business people across the country, you know. And I connected with him on LinkedIn. He actually sent me a really nice message. With a couple of minutes of him sending a message, I actually called him on his mobile and said, would you be a guest? And he said yes.
There you go.
And we booked it. So I think all your points about think big, actually there are nice people out there who will happily speak to you. Also your point about success leaves clues. So, you know, if there's people, if there's agents that you think that you admire, give them a call, have a conversation with them. You know, you're an award-winning agent, you know, so pick up the phone. I'm sure Ben will be happy to share with some tips as to how we got to the best agent. Was it medium, wasn't it?
No, overall last year. The year before it was medium in the East Midlands, and last year it was overall residential sales winner.
Which is fantastic. So again, so a couple of tips then. Let's help the audience here who are watching. So what does it take to be the #1 agent in the UK on sales? No pressure now. No pressure.
Well, my first answer to that is easy, and it is absolutely all about the team that's on the front line. And you know, we're in the Midlands, we're in Derby, and you mentioned those numbers earlier. It's more of a volume business for us, while still being able to deliver outstanding customer service, which I'd like to believe was what contributed towards the awards last year. But one of the first things people say when they join the business is just how nice everybody is in the branches. You know, we really try to promote, it's not necessarily a family ethos, because I think in families, you continue to support people who aren't pulling their weight, which I don't think is a good thing in business, but it's very much of a team. So everybody's there to support the team, and the work that everybody does contributes to everybody else. And we just have an incredible team of just genuinely nice people who care about what they do. They work with integrity, whether that's caring about the customer or care about their teams, and they just have a genuine passion to be the best at what they do. And it's taken us a long time to get to the point that we're at now. You know, it's taken us 15 years of people joining the business, leaving the business, being removed from the business. But I don't think there's ever been a better point in time where I could walk into any of the 9 branches that we've got and, you know, straight away feel the buzz, feel the energy, and just see great teams of great people who enjoy what they do. Yes, it is, you know, there's pressure at the minute. It's hard work because we're so busy, and we just got to tread that balance between under-resourcing and over-resourcing, and then regretting it later on down the line. But everybody is just, you know, pulling the weight and getting heads down and doing what's done. You know, me, I'm out there doing viewings, valuations, take-ons, answering the phone, and there's still the day-to-day business firefighting that's going on. But, you know, so is everybody else. And that, for me, is the #1 ingredient. And I think what helps you to find that is having a really clearly defined set of company values that are part of the leadership team, and then bringing on board people who are in line with those values, and choosing people with the right attitude who are in line with those values over past performance and sales figures that aren't going to fit in, because 99 times out of 100, that person who might have been a superstar in the previous role but isn't necessarily a team player, might not work with the same levels of integrity, is not going to fit in, and they're probably going to cause more problems than it's worth. Whereas if you bring somebody with the right attitude that is in line with the company values, and we talk about them in our job application adverts, we talk about them in interviews, so that's what we're really looking for. If they've got the right attitude, then they can come in and they can learn and they can thrive. And I'm trying to think of the most recent people that we brought on board. Probably 3 out of the 4 have had very little property experience, but because they are, in line with our company values, they're a Hanel's type of person, which we've really found out what that is over the last couple of years, which makes a huge difference. They're superstars already because they're willing to come in and learn. The attitude is already there. And for me, that's what counts. So that's number one. And I think number two, particularly for an estate agent, given that we are, this traditional high street agent, we're in the suburbs, we're not in the town centres, we're very active in the communities in terms of board presence and being out and about, is having a genuine focus and passion for delivering great customer service. Because probably for us, and this might be different for other agents, our 2 best forms of marketing are the boards that we have in each area, because they're saturated with panel sort of boards, whether it's to let, for sale, sold, student let, to let. Every street there's going to be 2 or 3 of each, which is by far what gets the phone ringing the most evaluations. But it's also word of mouth, because families stay local. If they have a good experience with you, they'll tell their other members of the family to use us. Will come up in conversations when people are talking about estate agents. And we one of the KPIs for the branch managers is customer reviews. And in order to get good customer reviews, you've got to deliver a good service. So it's having that real focus on customer service, not just at a branch level, but from a leadership level as well. And those for us are by far probably the best 2 things that have contributed to the success of Hanel's in Derby. It's the team of people that we've got, without doubt, and it is the board presence and the word of mouth and the customer service that we deliver.
Brilliant, thank you. So a couple of highs. Hi Sammy, thanks very much for joining. Hi Jim from Scotland is joining as well, appreciate it. So again, please, if there's other people that you think will benefit, please tag them in so they can hear the fantastic stuff that Ben is coming up with. Education will only get you so far. Attitude will get you further after this. Attitude determines your altitude. From Jim. Can I unpack again a couple of things? And I'm conscious of time, so tell me if you've got to go, and I'll thank you very much. I'm not going yet, Sam, unless Ben is. Okay.
No,
Thanks very much for your comments. So very motivational from Sam and Russell. This is a great work, great work, Benjamin. So thanks for your comments. Really appreciate it. You touched on recruitment then.
Yeah.
So what sort of recruitment questions that you are happy to share would you be asking to find out whether people actually meet your values?
It's difficult. For me, recruitment is, you see a lot of job adverts and it's all about, this is the type of person that we're looking for. These are the attitudes we want you to have. But for me, it's a case of us flipping on that head. And that's an opportunity for you. If you want the best people to come and join your business, you've got to sell the business. So it's, as with any sales process, it's that with them. It's what's in it for them. If you want to approach the best people, what's going to be in it for them? Are they going to be joining a company that has a big vision? They've had all these successes and achievements over the years. They have these company values. These are what the KPIs are. This is what it means for them if they hit them. Or are they just going to be reading another generic, we want people with a great attitude that have had this experience? So that very first job advert is a really good opportunity for you to separate yourself from everybody else that's out there and really sell your position. So if somebody has to make a choice again for joining your business, and you have this core set of company values, you have this vision and this mission that everybody's bought into, you have these past successes, you have these ambitions for the future, and taking a lower pay cut, or go into a bog standard with, I'm probably going to say corporate, but I don't want to slag off the corporates because lots of them are very good at what they do. But a bog standard, corporate type of agency where they're just going to be another number, but they get paid a little bit more. Which one are they going to choose? Are they going to choose the company where they might have to take a little bit less to begin with, but they get to be a real part of that journey and help the business to grow and help themselves to grow and maybe lead to much better long-term prospects? Or are they going to pick that short-term, higher wage for a company where they're not really going to make a difference and they're just going to be another number? So that, initial advert is straight away a great place to separate yourself. And then again, it's about attracting them, because when you are in an interview process, I'm sure most people that are watching, you've had candidates that come across as absolute amazing candidates. Their CV is on fire. They've achieved everything that somebody in a certain position can achieve. They come across amazing in the interview, and then you put them in the role and they're absolutely terrible and they flop. On the other side, you have people that the CV is one piece of paper. They've not got much estate agency experience. They come across as quite shy and introverted on the interview, but then you put them in that seat and they're negotiating and they're on fire. So I don't think you can ever really tell whether a candidate is going to be great or not until they're actually in that position. But I think where we need to focus, if you want to bring the best people on, is by selling the business to attract them in the first place. And then the only way you find out is when they're in the role. But hopefully, if you've done it in the right way, if they don't turn out to be the right person, you've then got a bank of people who really want to join your company because of all these fantastic prospects and journey, etc., that you can then refer back to. So does that answer the question?
It does. And so how long did it take for you to get your core values and your mission statement and getting the buy-in from everybody to get there? Because it's not, it doesn't happen overnight.
No, and we've been through a few iterations as well. And I'll admit, since we've come back from coronavirus, it has fallen a little bit by the wayside, but gradually as we're starting to find our way and get used to these new levels of activity, we're starting just to refresh everybody and start talking about it again. But we had a business coach that we went through the process with about 5 or 6 years ago, and we sort of had a half-hearted attempt at it. But then when we really got to grips with it was maybe 3 years ago, where we really sat down and we consulted everybody in the business. So we've got a team of 60 people here. So we sat down and said, what are the things that you enjoy about Hanels? What type of business would you like to be a part of? And got everybody's ideas, so everybody feels like they've contributed to it. And then put together, the values, the mission. We called it the one-page plan. So everybody in the business knew exactly where we were heading. They knew the type of business we want to be. They know what our USPs are and our, differentiators, what separates us from all the other agents out there. So that is a consistent message across the business. And they know what type of people we're looking for. And when you've got that crystal clear, again, particularly for the recruitment process, it just makes it far easier to find your kind of people who are going to jump on board and contribute to that journey. But it is a long journey. And I think with those things, you have to be able to block out time each week just to focus on getting it right. Otherwise, the day-to-day stuff, the firefighting, the answering the calls, the responding to emails, it just takes precedent. And those important parts of business, I call them the foundations. And when I talked about earlier, when the recession came and, our sort of empire crumbled, it was because we didn't have those foundations in place. But now that we've spent time really building some solid foundations, it means you can build a much bigger business. And when you do have to take a knot or when activity does drop, you've got the resilience and the right people in the business to keep progressing and keep growing.
Brilliant, thank you. So a couple of final questions. Who inspires you?
Okay, that's a great question. There's all the traditional, the myths of the entrepreneurial world. So there's your Elon Musk, there's your Richard Branson. But for me, it's people that have got the courage to be out there, making a name for themselves, doing something different. So you, Stephen, definitely are an inspiration to me. The team behind Agents Together, and I know we've talked about Agents Together already, so I'm not just trying to, say good things about Agents Together, but people who are out there, who have the courage to separate themselves from the pack, because it does take courage to be different and, put your name out there, because you leave yourself open to attacks and everything else that comes with it. But just anybody who is driven, who has a big vision for themselves, who is working towards it, and just has the courage, like I say, to put themselves out there. So I couldn't really name specifics, but when I look through my LinkedIn feed and I see people making stuff happen, that is what inspires me every morning. That's what motivates me. The people that I talk to for Agents Together, like I said, Jonathan, Simon, they inspire me, they motivate me. Anybody that I'm having these conversations with, I will only have these conversations with people who inspire or motivate me. Otherwise, there's nothing in it for me. So you're definitely in that category, Stephen.
Oh, thank you. I'm blushing now. What can I say? Callum, thanks very much for joining us from Swindon. What are your non-negotiables?
Okay, my first is not agreeing to do interviews on holiday. That was a new one. Came about a couple of weeks ago.
So you talk about failures and learnings. There you go.
Yeah, there's an important lesson to bear in mind for the future. Okay, non-negotiables. I think I have three really that are more recently over the last few months I've really started to sort of develop and instill. The first is I think has been a part of anything that I've always done is anything that I do or I'm going to put my name to, I'm either going to do it to the best of my ability or I'm not going to do it at all. So, all these ventures that I've talked about in the past that have failed or been a relative success, the podcast, I Spy My Home, social marketing businesses, I've always given it, my all. Everything looks great, deliver a great service. It's just never quite got to the point of launching to the way I'd like to launch it. So that's number one, is either give it everything or don't bother. Second is it's got to be either a hell yes or it's a hell no. If it doesn't get you fired up, if it doesn't get you, motivated, if it doesn't get you excited, maybe slightly scared as well. And I'll admit, I was nervous before coming on to this interview with you, Stephen, because I've spent a lot of time in your chair interviewing other people, but I've spent very little time on the other side being interviewed. So there's a few of those instances that come about recently. I had the opportunity to do some brilliant videos with Christopher and Sam down at Christopher's headquarters the other day, which again was another pushing me outside of my comfort zone experience. But when I was presented with that opportunity, it was, oh, hell yes, I'm going to do this because it's helping me on my own career. It's pushing me outside of my comfort zone. And hopefully those videos turned out all right. And the last one is it's got to be a win for the person on the other side or whoever I'm working with, but it's got to be a win for me as well. If it's not taking me in the direction that I want to go in and contributing in some way to my own journey, then it's, as selfish as it sounds, I'm not going to say yes, because the more time I spend working towards my own vision and goals and long-term strategy, the quicker I'm going to get there. And I don't really want to engage with anything that's going to take me off from that. So I can't think of any specific examples, but those are the three non-negotiables I'd say. It's if I'm going to do anything, I'm going to do it to an excellent level. It's got to be a hell yes or a hell no, because if you're not quite sure, are you going to give it that preparation? Are you going to come across in the best possible light? And it's got to contribute towards my own journey, but be a win for the other side as well. So hopefully this has been a win for you as well, Stephen. Hopefully I've been able to give some insights or share some information that the viewers have found useful. I don't know. They'll be the judge of that.
No, well, you've been fantastic, and I love your energy and I love your passion. And for me, you've just reminded me of a story of getting out of my comfort zone. So I got a phone call from somebody at the RICS to say, would I speak at their RICS conference? And I just said yes, nervously. And not realizing how many people they're going to be there, and that there was a stage and there were lights shining, and there were people from there were like government ministers there were people from Knight Frank, Stratton Parker, Countrywide, all on stage as well, the RICS economics correspondent, and then in my opinion little Stephen Brown. So this is going back maybe 4 or 5 years. And I remember walking into the room thinking, shit, what have I just let myself in for? But I was definitely out of my comfort zone. I definitely did it, and likewise, I think what you're doing, you said you put your mastermind group together, and that's great. And I first started, my boss took me to a mastermind group, his mastermind group through Vistage. Going back years and years ago, and he took me to this group, and he said, Stephen, I want you to come along because it's a leadership course, or we've got a leadership speaker. So he said, come along and you can just listen, and that's absolutely fine. So that was quite exciting, and there were 16 people around the table, so all different businesses. And 3/4 of the way through, the leadership speaker goes, right, I've got a little exercise for you to do. As a business leader, you're decided to go away tomorrow on a 6-month sabbatical. Here's your team around the table, inspire them as to what they're going to do whilst you're away. And I was very shy. I wouldn't say boo to a goose. And he said, you're all going to have a go. So now my heart rate is, my heart is pounding. I'm pouring with sweat. I'm like, and they go round everybody, and it comes to my MD, and he knows exactly what I'm like. And the facilitator goes, Stephen, you know, you don't need to worry, you're a guest. And my MD goes, you don't need to do it. And I did it. And I'm sure it was out of sympathy. They all gave me a round of applause and a standing ovation. I felt really good for doing it. It still took me a year to join, but I did join, and that changed my life. Going to a mastermind group, having people who would challenge you, get you out of your comfort zone, inspire you, share ideas. So, you know, if there's people watching this, if there's mastermind groups around, and you talked about Peter's group, which is fantastic. I've got a couple of mastermind groups as well. You know, get in touch, because having the help of people that have been there and can share different experiences, and if you're willing to action it and learn, it makes a massive, massive difference. So one final question, I promise, because you've been amazing and I'm really grateful for your time. If you were starting off today, knowing what you know now, what would you do differently?
What would I do differently? Well, that's an interesting question, because I'm always only toying with in my head, you know, we are a massive, well, I say massive, we're a volume business. So like you said, 190 new listings or 188 sales agreed. That's not the norm, by the way. That's one of our best months ever, but we're not far off that on a pretty regular basis, apart from December. And when you see
I
hope
you're thinking big now, like 300 a month.
Bigger than that, Stephen. World domination is the plan. I just haven't told anybody yet. But then when you see these fine and country agents who are obviously, you know, doing a great job with what they're doing, they're selling, you know, 5 or 6 houses a month, then there's a much smaller team. There's pros and cons to both. So that's a great question, and I don't think anybody's ever asked me that. But the first thing I would do is I would create my own mastermind. So I'd find people who inspire me and motivate me, whether it's from the industry or not, and I get a group that supports me and challenges me. What would I do different? I want to give you something insightful, but this was the same answer for a lot of people that are on the guests on the podcast show, is I actually wouldn't do anything different. Because when you look back over your life, I can see how every success, every failure, every course, every book that I've read, every 15 minutes that I've spent reading an article, every conversation that I've had with an inspirational person, whether it's you or somebody on the podcast, has taken me to where I am now. And I absolutely love where I am now. You know, I love my family life. I love being at home with the kids and the dogs. I love the work I get to do at Hannells. I love working with the team that we've got here. I love the work that I do with Agents Together. I love the work that I do with other CEOs and business owners. And I wouldn't want any of that to change. And if I'd done something different 10 years ago, I might not be in that position now. So I would honestly say that I wouldn't change anything. The only thing I would have changed is getting started earlier. So there's the answer. So with the real self-development and having confidence in myself as a leader and having the confidence to reach out to other people and ask for help and ask for support, it would have been do it earlier. So if you've not already started that, if you're not part of a mastermind, if you're not speaking to people who are slightly above where you want to be, get started now, because you will regret it later on in life.
Brilliant. Ben, I am so grateful for your time. You've been a fantastic guest, full of passion. So people, please go onto iTunes, and I'm sure there's other platforms as well. Go and listen to the Truth About Business podcast. There's some fantastic stuff in there. It's absolutely exceptional. I look forward to hearing you do 500 instructions and 500 sales in September, because you told me to think big. So really grateful for your time. Thank you all for watching, whether now or whether you're on replay. Please, Ben has shared so many amazing things. So, you know, tag some friends in, tag some colleagues in. There's loads of great learnings in here that's going to benefit people. Get them to go to the SJB Facebook page or go to the Stephen J. Brown YouTube channel, subscribe, and listen to some wonderful speakers. Ben, you've been amazing. Thank you so much for your time. I look forward to seeing you all on Thursday at 12:30, where Chris Fitzsimmons from Anthony Quirk in Canby Island, who's got 50% market share, is going to be joining me as my guest. So have a lovely afternoon. Thanks very much. Appreciate all your time. Thanks, Ben.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen. I've really enjoyed it. Honoured to be a part of it. Hope I've given some good stuff and lived up to the expectations set by the rest of you guests. And thank you to all the watchers and all the great comments as well. It's been a great afternoon.
No, you've been exceptional. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. Have a great day, everybody. See you soon.